Welcome, everyone. This is Greg Aden. And before we start with a special guest, Patty Beach, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, InterraWorks, integrated learning to transform potential into results. And what does all that mean? Well, they're there to elevate the human experience, period. Productivity, leadership, relationships, communication, and they have three ways of doing it through Effective Edge, Best Year Yet, and Essentials. If you don't know of InterraWorks, please check them out at interraworks.com. Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aden coming to you live from Denver. I don't know why I always say coming to you live because it isn't live. When you're hearing this or seeing this, it's just going to be after the fact. But I don't know, maybe that's my old DJ days. But today I have a very special guest. Her name is Patty Beach. She lives right up the road in Boulder, Colorado, and she has written an incredible book. She's an incredibly intelligent human being. But I would say what I've come to learn about and love about Patty is she's just warm and genuine and extremely bright. And I don't know what else to say, but I do want to.
Thanks for that.
Yes, absolutely. So here you are. Here I am. We chatted a week or so ago to kind of prepare for this, and I said, "How am I going to cover everything that you have done and what you're working on?" But first of all, I wouldn't have guessed this, but I had no idea that you were a geologist and you worked for BP back in the Houston days. And that's a long time ago. But how does somebody go from geologist to a world-class executive coach?
I was a geologist for 15 years, but it was quite a while ago. And I was a female tree hugger in the oil and gas business, which is kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But you're like, what is a woman tree hugger back in the late 90s, doing being a geologist in energy in Houston? But I really had this wholehearted belief that there should be a place for women and tree huggers in every business.
Absolutely.
And if I'm going to put gas in my car, if I'm going to light my house, if I'm going to use fuel, I want to be a part of how that's done in a responsible way. And I really have been kind of an earth mother. Like, I love hiking, live in Colorado out here. And that was what attracted me to being a geologist in the first place. But what I found from my 15 years working in oil and gas was that while I was really interested in what wells we were going to drill, I was more interested in how we talked about what we were going to do. Like why we're going to drill this well, what risk factors we were going to face. And in the projects we had to do, it was very complicated. By the time that we drilled a well and produced oil, it was about as complicated as building like a rocket to the moon. It was very complicated. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn a lot about what deadlines and capital projects and all of those things are that need to be thought about in business, but also about what we need to have healthy deliberation to make important decisions.
Yeah.
When you've got a capital project, when you've got a high risk process like drilling for oil and offshore, you really got to be thoughtful about it.
Well, and you were looking for alternative ways to create energy as well, I assume.
Yeah, different things in the portfolio. We could pursue gas versus oil, where we were going to do it, what kind of technology we were going to use, how we were going to meet regulations, the compliance environment we needed to operate in. So I learned a lot about the realities of these very complex projects and what you need to do to have healthy deliberation on these topics so you can make a good decision.
Interesting you bring up all of what you just said, because obviously at some point you said enough of this. You went to and you started or you joined a boutique leadership development
Well,
company?
I went off and got a graduate degree in organizational development.
Okay.
To really study how is it that we develop an organization where you can have a truth-telling environment, where you can have psychological safety, and you can make good evidence-based decisions that incorporate in all the intelligence of the people that need to be involved. So I studied that in graduate school. Then I went off and did coach training, and I switched careers from doing earth science to doing behavioral science and organizational development coaching.
Yeah,
and leadership development.
Quick question. How'd you pick Pepperdine out of all the other schools that would have?
Well, Pepperdine started the field of organizational development over 50 years ago. In fact, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And they had the most incredible faculty. I got to learn from people like Peter Block, Greg Tannenbaum,
Hmm.
just like the best in the field, basically. The people who started the field of organizational development were adjunct professors that would come through. And so it was an incredible learning opportunity. And I really feel that the way that the faculty shaped the program was just an incredible learning experience that bonded us as a community of practitioners. So I get a lot of support, not only from the professors that I work with, but also the whole community of about 1,500 organizational development practitioners have graduated from the program over the years.
Hmm.
So it's been well worth it. It was an expensive program. It's still an expensive program. But if anybody out there is interested in learning about organizational development, I absolutely would wholeheartedly recommend they look into the Pepperdine program.
Yeah, good, nice place to go to school, and great location in the country as well. Oh, by the way, Patty, on the back of your book, you mentioned Patty and her husband Roger also developed a versatility factor assessment to foster gender inclusive leadership. Tell me more about that. I honestly didn't even know until I picked up the book again today.
Yeah. So I did my master's thesis at Pepperdine many years ago on understanding masculine and feminine energy as an organizational intervention.
Hmm.
So, masculine and feminine is a way of describing the opposite sort of energetic spectrum. And my belief is that all of us have masculine and feminine energy that we can tap into according to what it is that we need to do. So,
Amen.
whether you're male, female, whatever your gender identity is, or however you want to describe yourself, it's important to recognize that these are opposite energies that are best when they're in balance. It's like a polarity that you manage. So that was an expertise I developed very early on. I worked with Barry Johnson, who wrote a book called Polarity Management that helps people understand how to manage polarities. And I developed a methodology for a leader to assess themselves in terms of their balance of masculine and feminine leadership attributes. They
Hmm.
could see if they were leaning more masculine, leaning more feminine, and then kind of ask themselves, well, if that's the way I'm leaning, what can I do to grow this opposite energy in myself, or who can I partner with? If I
Sure.
feel like my sweet spot is on the masculine side or the feminine side, what should I do? It's called the versatility factor assessment. So you can go to versatilityfactor.com, take that assessment, and it just gets you really thinking about to what degree have I sort of pigeonholed myself, because sometimes the gender norms would have women or men feel uncomfortable with the opposite side. And so the idea with this is to just help us get more comfortable with both of these kind of energies are important in leadership. So on the masculine side, it's like being decisive, being strategic, having a strong vision. On the feminine side, it's more collaboration, trust, developing emotional intelligence, et cetera. So you
But
end
they're
up with
both,
both. They're both
yes.
important, right? Very
I was going to
important.
say, yeah, they're both important, and too much of one or too little of the other would not be good. Love it. I'm going to look into
That's why we
that
call it
myself.
versatility, that you're a versatile leader, like a Swiss Army knife when you have both
Sure.
sides, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and just by how we look and how we sound and how we dress and how we talk, we could get even judged and pigeonholed just by that. But a great leader, if you can hear his or her their voice, does it really matter? Sure, it does. But if you read the words, and you didn't know if it was a masculine or feminine point of view, would you have any judgment about that? That could be a whole nother podcast. But
Yeah, it helps you look at how you judge yourself and what you preclude
sure.
yourself from feeling comfortable leaning into, right? If all of these attributes are positive, why would you not want to have it? So,
Amen.
um, yeah,
Well, the reason I fell in love with Patty, it was a book that she had recommended and sent me, and I'll just show you right here. It's called The Art of Alignment, and I've referred this book to hundreds of people, dozens of teams that I work with. But it was the SHUVA. It was the acronym that you have created and is now very, very popular amongst anybody that follows Aden leadership, and that is to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be valued, and to be appreciated. But I'll never forget, Patty, when we first met, you said everybody wants or needs this. And I want to understand, and I want the listeners to understand, where did you come up with the acronym? We all understand what the words mean, but the collective of those 5 words in the acronym, how did you develop that? And then again, like you told me the other day, how critical is SHUVA to teams relative to alignment?
yeah. Well, I really think that Shuva is just super powerful, very simple concept, right? And it's a formula that is anybody can do these 5 actions. I can see you, I can hear you, I can understand you, I can value you, I can appreciate you. And when I do that, I meet your 5 needs to be seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. And when you do that to me, you meet my needs. And we have this relationship that's conducive to
Yeah.
alignment. If any one of those is missing, then you miss the boat. Like I might be like, I see you and I hear you, but that's as far as it goes. And that happens a lot of times with the leaders that I work with, which are very smart people. So they tend to think, okay, I have a lot of great ideas. You have a lot of great ideas. You take your turn, I'll take my turn. And we take turns, but we're not really SHUVA-ing each other. I like to think of
Right.
this as like a verb, right? We're not really seeing, we're not really hearing, we're not understanding. And most importantly, we're not valuing. We're not saying, hey, I have something to learn here and I don't know everything. So I need to really listen because what you have to say could really help me expand and grow. And then
Yeah.
appreciating a person. Sometimes you have people who you have conflict with and you just think, oh my gosh, this person is so hard. Instead of appreciating, they're working hard to help me understand something.
Yeah.
So I came up with it because I had coached all these leaders who were thinking, okay, I'm going to listen to you because that'll make you feel good. We see that. Well, that's a good thing, but that's not what I'm going for. I'm like, no, you as a leader, when you listen to the person, if you're not gaining something out of it, you're not listening right, you know? So
Well, and
that's why
you're
I came up with the SHUVA, the value and appreciate part of the formula. Because it would be like, I see you, I hear you, and even I understand you, but I think this, that, and the other was what they were kind of going for. So I
if
wanted
you
that deeper understanding of people and in response to them. Sorry,
well,
you
and
can
you said no, and you said A is appreciate, not appeasing. And a lot of people think of pleasing and appeasing is leadership, and it just isn't. And it isn't with your kids, it isn't with your team, it isn't with a coworker. So I just love it.
You
And
can shoot at people you disagree with. And I think this is
absolutely.
what we just need more of out there from leaders everywhere is that they're able to listen all the way to inform their judgment, then agree or disagree on what should happen and be able to voice their opinion also by shooting themselves. That they're
Yep.
not just listening to you, they're listening inside and really appreciating their own point of view.
Well, and you said inform your judgment, not defend your judgment, not think your judgment is okay. Because again, judgment is nothing short of just a tremendous negative word. Anything about the book that you would call out to a team that might be listening or a team leader that might be listening to this, and not only why buy the book, but why read your book and share the book with your team leader, because alignment is so critical. And I love the title is The Art of Alignment. And I believe after all the things I do relative to alignment, there is an art to it, but everything. And InterraWorks, the sponsor of this podcast, they're one of the best in the area of alignment creates accountability. But we all
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about accountability. I'm going to hold you accountable. But no, I never agreed to it. And they have a clock that starts at 10 and goes to 3, 6, and 9. But I want you to share. You came up with the title. I believe the art is important because it's not a task.
Well, also the subtitle is important, a practical guide to inclusive leadership. So my belief is that alignment doesn't happen through selling and telling or command and control, which is what we normally see in leadership. Like I'll be the charismatic person and inspire you, or I'll, give you these orders and you're going to follow them. But in my book, inclusive leadership means we co-create the solution together because co-creation leads to co-ownership.
Yep.
So in my book, I have a very clear process. It's called the 4 steps and the 5 C's, where leaders can put ideas on the table, which with the proposal, and then use the C's to gather feedback about that proposal, then to create a reproposal and to close. So your accountability is not something that you have to do; it's something you've committed to doing
Mm-hmm.
ultimately through the process. So I believe that one, co-creativity is important. And two, it's efficient if you do it with my process, meaning that you have a good sense of what you're trying to achieve with that. And it goes back to SHUVA, like we're saying, if I'm not seeing, hearing, understanding, valuing, and appreciating, your ideas with regards to my proposal of what it is we're going to agree to do together, or you put a proposal on the table and I need to SHUVA you, we're not going to get there.
Uh,
And we got to create that psychological safety that the process does that, adds efficiency, and it makes that a practical reality that we could inclusively co-create the solutions we need to commit to. So I'm not holding you accountable. We are just accountable because we created the solutions, the one we want to do.
well, you also said one of my favorite words. It's not what I told you to do, it's what you agreed to. And you may know Stephen Chandler. He's been out there a long time. He's a coach's coach and just a brilliant mind. And he coaches in distinctions. And one thing I picked up from Steve early on is expectations versus agreement. And I've said it many times on the show before, and I'll just say it again, is if you expect something from somebody, and again, I say that very specifically with my finger pointing at you because that's all you're doing. And most people say yes or no, or I might be able to, or they just shake their head. But a agreement almost is, you can picture you and I agreeing on something and we shake hands, or I sign something, or in a room of my peers, the leadership team, we all agree to, and then you break it down into just what is going to get done based on what you agree to. But a lot of us don't know how to create agreement.
Yeah.
Therefore, there isn't alignment, and therefore we wonder why are things not getting done.
Well, expectations minus agreement is just wishes. You just wish you would do this, right?
Yeah.
And I can have those expectations all the day long, but half the time, the people that are having something expected of them don't even really understand what's expected of them. So they're saying yes, they may be agreeing, but do they actually know what they've agreed to? That's why the alignment process has these very specific areas of inquiry. Like, let's say I expect this X of you. Well, first thing you would do is clarifications. Are you clear on what I'm expecting of you? Then compliments. What do you like about what I've said as an expectation? Because if you don't like anything about it, then good luck getting it done, right?
Right.
And then we have concerns. What are your concerns about what I'm expecting of you? Is it really realistic given your time frame, your skills, your capabilities, resources? And then what changes might you change about what I'm expecting of you? So we can then you agree, we commit. So that's the last C. So it's clarifications, compliments, concerns, changes, and commitment. That 5 C's formula is a super powerful formula that can be used to get that agreement you need on any
Yeah.
expectations, proposals, project plans, change initiatives. It doesn't matter what it is, it's the same process. Have we laid an idea on the table? Have we deliberated it so we're clear on what's working, what's not, and what we're actually going to do? And if we don't, then you're not going to walk away. We're not going to know if we don't know who will do what, by when, and why, and we've
Mm-hmm.
agreed to it, not much chance of it actually coming through the way you hope for.
Yeah.
Once you have that, then you can give the freedom to the person because, it's clear. And then if they don't deliver, then it maybe it's somebody you might need to do some managing. Maybe they're not in the right position, et cetera. It's a different process. But most of the time, people don't go through those paces when they delegate things or when they set strategy or when they create a plan. And so then they have a fuzzy plan that people don't know what they even agreed to. It's like we
Yeah.
think we had an agreement, but we just aren't sure what it was.
Or do they even create a plan? And if they do create a plan, is it in their calendar? Because you mentioned, one of my favorite words, when. Yeah, we understand the why for the most part. We break, we huddle, and we all know what we're supposed to do and who's going to do it, but when. And again, a very powerful tool, very simple, available to all of us. It's called the calendar, and most of us don't run through our own stop signs, but we don't calendar the things we actually agreed to. But that's a whole nother conversation. The other
Yeah.
day, you and I were talking about a tool that you're creating, and at whatever level you'd like to talk about this, Patty, introduce it to us when it's rolling out. But I was really intrigued by it, and honestly, I was thinking, what about being an investor? But instead, I just want to talk about what the tool is and where did you come up with this?
Right. So, as I had mentioned, I had created this process called the 4 steps and the 5 C's, which allow leaders and teams to basically, you can get any group of any size to make an agreement and commit using this process, which
Yep.
is a hat trick in itself. So I've taught it to lots of facilitators. They go out professionally, facilitate using those 4 steps, 5 Cs. I've taught it to lots of leaders that have used it. People have picked up my book and just started using it on their own. So you don't really need software to do it. But what we realized is that it's helpful if you can put your proposal into software and then bring a group together and then field all of their questions through the software, either in a meeting or maybe even offline where you can't get people in the same room. And then you have it all documented in the software. The other thing the software can do that is makes it convenient is add an AI component. So when we gather clarifications, it can, kind of organize those clarifications. So if we could have 100 people contributing to decision, and it would help us to cluster those clarifications and address them so that we make sure our solution addresses all of them, or the concerns, or the changes. It also would measure the degree to which we're committing along the way. So you would have like a dashboard to show, okay, we're getting closer to level of commitment. We need to make this decision, or we're further away, or we're polarized. So we can see to what
Yeah,
degree have we reached alignment or not reached alignment. And then ultimately, this software will provide data analytics back to people around their decision making process. So we're super excited about it. And we call it putting humans and AI in the same decision making loop. So if you and I were here discussing something and we had an AI listening to us, we're using this 5 Cs process, the AI could take our conversation and make a reproposal for us so that we can see where after we put the original proposal on the table, how it got changed and
yeah,
expedite it. So it'll go a lot faster. So basically, that's what it is. It's a group decision making platform that has an AI component that we feel like it creates a robust and an efficient dialogue. Also can create psychological safety, like perhaps people don't want to know who said what in the decision making process. You might want it to be anonymous, so you could obfuscate who's saying what, or you can make that obvious depending on what level of transparency you want. So we're super excited about it, and we're in the process of testing it with our clients, and so we can get more feedback from. And we think it'll be something that coaches will be interested to use, especially if they facilitate agreements, and also
absolutely.
leaders and teams. Yeah.
I mean, safety, productivity, relationships, trust, saving time, money, and energy. One of my favorite things to offer any client. And sometimes they say, how are you going to save me energy? Well, if I take anxiety out of your conversations because you're more intentional with your word and your relationships become deeper and better and more full of trust, would you save energy? Energy that you don't have to walk around saying WTF or look in the mirror and prepare for something that you didn't need to prepare for if you had a better relationship, which starts
I
with
just
better.
love that.
Yeah.
But how would you feel if you had agreements you'd made actually documented so you could go back and see what the heck it was you agreed to?
Well,
I don't know about you, but sometimes I lose track of all the things I've agreed to. And so it's kind of
amen.
nice to have something, that's
Well,
very human.
and at 62, I'm forgetting more and more every day. So
Mm.
I love the tool. When you told me about it, I instantly fell in love with it. And as a coach and people who coach teams a ton, what a great tool. Now, the software component, we have our phones in our hands all the time already today. Are you suggesting that because we are using software, it might be most effective for the results we say we want to achieve? And is it also because of AI? And the last question, the younger generation are very, very used to looking at their phone and asking questions. And you and I, when you were in University of Tulsa and I was at Fort Lewis,
Hmm.
we didn't have that. So I understand the technology reason for it, but is it going to take away any of the relationship building if we're not all in the same room?
Well, our tool can be used with everyone in the same room to enhance their engagement. But what it would be doing is it would be, like when we get together and we bounce around ideas, we're in the same room. That's a rich experience, but
Yeah.
sometimes it just kind of goes random, in this. So with this tool, it would help us, just like if I was using a flip chart to write things down, right?
Yep.
It would help us to see what we addressed and where we addressed it and go through the process in a systematic way if it was important for us to do that. Now, it's not good for everything. I don't want to use it for every brainstorm or every decision, like, that would be onerous. But in cases where you want to make sure that you're including the introverts, who don't
Yeah.
always say something, I think it can enhance the face-to-face engagement. So we have that tool set up to where you can just pop it right up onto the screen and get people to interact with it with their phones, adding their questions and comments. Also, what I have found, anytime you have a group, that it's always good to ask each individual in the group to think for a second before
Yeah.
they say something, right? So this would get them to do that. Just take a second, put your clarifications, your compliments, your concerns in this platform, and then we'll discuss it one by one, right? That grounding each leader in what they really think and what they know and they don't know is a very helpful thing for a facilitator to do. Not all facilitators do that, not all leaders do that, but this tool would make it conducive for people to do that more often. So we
Well,
get the advantage of the individual thinking and the group thinking. We're
yeah.
not just whoever started talking first, they dominated the conversation, and that's what got decided, which is what we normally see.
And that's where my head and heart were going. You said psychological safety earlier, and I want to bring that back to the forefront of the conversation because I believe there are the dominant people, masculine or feminine, and they just tend to either pick on people or call on people to get the answers that he or she or they are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, with the technology, how many times have you started an email and you were getting ready to hit send and you asked yourself, what am I thinking? That's going to hurt their feelings, or that's just going to make me look like a you know what. So you have a chance to retype it. Or
Right.
you come back later and with your tool, instead of just saying something that you can't take back, you can now type it, look at it later and say, oh, this is a valuable contribution to the team. Or this is a reasonably professional response to someone else's suggestion. Again, I just love it. I can't wait for
So
it
that's
to.
one of the AI components that we want to add. That if you're adding like, let's say you're adding a clarification, like I always say, WTF is not a clarification. I hope I can say that on this
Right.
podcast, right? So let's say
Absolutely.
you're putting that in there, it before it when you hit enter, it would say, this is not a clarification, this may be inflammatory. Is that really what you want to say?
Ah,
You can
love it.
override it, right? But then it would just kind of catch you on the tone so that you are kind of staying in the channel. If we're talking about clarifications, let's make sure we understand
Love
this. We're
it.
talking about changes. Let's make sure we've got those organized together. And we're not kind of putting all of this stuff in some random order, which makes it hard to take advantage and tap into this collective intelligence we've just spent a little time talking about, right?
So many beautiful nuggets, Patty. And again, you just are used to your language and your style of communication. But again, we're going to catch you on your tone. What a polite professional way to say we don't need your attitude. We don't need your negative tone here. We want and need your valuable professional suggestions. And again, amen to the AI
Yeah,
component.
whenever I'm facilitating meetings that are contentious and people are like, but they're like, only idiots would think this or whatever their comment is, right? I always just say, hey, how can you say that in a manner that would be most likely to be received here?
Mm-hmm.
Give them a second chance. And a lot of times people stand back and go, okay, I need to say that a little differently because we all get kind of charged and our saboteurs take over and all that stuff, right? So,
Amen.
mhm.
Well, lots of things to cover, and we already have. But I always like to end my conversations, Patty, with my guests by asking who was really important to in your success as you were coming up. And again, we talked a little bit about the geologist, why you picked Pepperdine, but real men and women, real human beings, and have helped Patty Beach become who Patty Beach is today. Who could you give some credit to for any
Well, I
of?
would like to give a shout out to my husband, Roger, on this one because I feel I met Roger many years ago when I was his coach, like many, many years ago. So normally I don't end up marrying my coaching clients or any of that.
Sure.
But, I found that he has an incredible vision. And any work that I did, he really believed in me. And then his vision would kind of go exponential. Like,
Hmm.
for example, he has the belief that this alignment process I have could be used to do incredible things for the benefit of the planet. Like, he has a very huge vision of it. Along the way, my saboteurs have kind of gotten in my way where I feel like, who am I? I'm just a coach who wrote a book. And even though I've had a lot of experience working with clients, that self sabotage voice has come in. And I feel like he's really called me in to how can I use my gift and service at a
Yeah.
higher level. So I'm continuing to develop myself to do that. You know, with the new software that we're developing, we're hoping that can take the process, which normally you might hire me or a coach to do, and put it at scale out in the world and help leaders solve bigger and bigger, more complex problems by tapping into the collective brain trust of smart people and having a way to track all of that and use it for good. So
Anybody else?
having somebody who believes in you and
Yeah.
challenges you to take it to the next level. I guess the other people who are inspiring me are my clients. Some of them are doing incredible things. And I feel like I just need to rise up and be the best coach I can for them.
I believe anybody listening to this podcast would have heard what you said earlier about your saboteur, and you said, why me? And well, obviously you've decided why not me, and you've led a lot of people, you've inspired a lot of people. I can't imagine what your client list looks like, and the people who reach out to you on a regular basis and thank you for what you've done with them, for them, to them many years ago. And you have inspired a lot of great teams. I can only imagine. We don't have time to talk about all of them, but in your book, or in the preface, it says teams on fire never burn out. And I love that phrase of I'm on fire or we're on fire. Whether we're scoring or we're playing great defense or we're coming up with great ideas, I believe any great team can say to themselves, "We're on fire," and as long as we're on fire, we won't burn out. I just
That's right.
just just loved it. Just
Thank you.
really, yeah,
Yeah, and that's what I feel like I'm trying to do, create that team on fire because they're committed. They're not doing it out of compliance or because somebody told them to. They really want to see that outcome. And it's such a cool thing to see it happen. In a way, I feel like a midwife that's birthing a baby because this idea comes out, and everybody kind of builds it and they become a part of it. And then you see that idea
yeah,
take hold and you see the numbers change, over time. It's the most exciting thing in the world to see when you have that committed group of people that are not only doing things right, but they're doing the right things. They're aligned around the right things. That's really key. And not trying to do too much, keeping it within scope. Alignment is about leverage.
yeah.
How do we take these smart people and find the most important thing we can pay our attention to in order to succeed in this endeavor with the resources we have?
This tool goes way beyond curiosity and empathy. Two are my recommendations for all great leaders. Whether you're in a rut, just starting, start with curiosity, have the empathy where the other person is coming from. But at some point, yeah, we have to get to what we're trying to achieve here. Why?
Yeah.
And who's going to do what and when, as we've discussed. Well, I can't wait to hear more about the launch, when it's going to happen, how it's going to be available, how much it's going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. But stay tuned for all of the listeners for that. If you want to reach out to Patty, she's on LinkedIn, Patty Beach, Beach. You can obviously see it here in the notes. Her company is called Leadership Smart. She's been 20 plus years in Boulder with this organization. It's her own, and just doing great things out there in the world. Is there anything, one last statement you'd like to say to our listeners today, Patty?
I just want to say actually to you, Greg, thank you so much for bringing the voice of folks like me to the world so people can have a place to learn and grow as leaders. I just think leadership is so very important. And so I want to encourage anybody out there who's listening to a podcast like this to become a better leader, to just believe in themselves. Keep at it.
Yeah,
Iteratively co-create and you'll get there.
absolutely. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for blessing us with a beautiful book and soon to be a great tool. And again, just to paraphrase what Patty just said, leaders, you have an opportunity to do whatever it is that you want to do. Make the choice to be the best you possibly can. Read, study, ask questions, but please don't fake it till you make it. Just say, I'm not sure. Go and get the answer and come back. Read a book, read another one, read an article, write articles, but please don't fake it to make it. Not in this space. You can go out and serve someone without all the credentials, yes, but at some point you're going to have to look him in the eye and say, I'm not sure. Or you might say, I don't have the answer. What do you think you should do? And when you put it back on them and just hold a space for them, that's coaching. You don't have to have all the answers.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Amen to
beautifully,
that.
yeah, great to see you. Thank you again for all you're doing. And for those of you who are interested in the tool, stay tuned, and I'll be putting something out on LinkedIn, and you can follow Patty Beach on her LinkedIn. So until then, be kind, be curious, be empathetic, and God bless. Wow. What a wonderful conversation with an amazing human being, Patty Beach. First of all, I want to recommend highly this book, Art of Alignment. And she covers a lot of things in there, the 5 C's about how to start at alignment and get to the results that you're looking for. She also mentioned SHUVA. And to me, it's more than an acronym. Yes, it means to what people want, and that's to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be valued, and to be appreciated. But just 2 or 3 is not good enough. People really want all of it. And ask yourself or ask your team, do they want to be seen? Do you want to be heard? Do people want to be understood, valued, and appreciated? Yes. And so think about that. Write it down on a sticky, keep it on your laptop, share it with your kids and find out what their questions are. But my question to you is, are you being curious enough to care about who's following you? And I hope you do. We learned great decisions comes from working with great teams, but communicating and making sure everybody is seen and heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. She gives an amazing process to creating alignment. It's an art, but yes, it takes time and it takes wisdom. She talks about the 5 C's, and allow me just to read this: the clarification phase, the compliments, the concerns, and the changes. And that's to make sure everybody is engaged and everybody's seen and heard and valued. And then the final C is commitment. So clarify, compliment, concern, change, and commitment. And what she talked about was, do you have any concerns about what we're working on? Do you have anything that you think we should change? And then at the end, we all make a commitment as to who is going to do what and when. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. Thank you, Patty Beach, for helping us learn a new way of creating alignment. It's something stuck in my head now, and I will certainly serve differently going forward. Thank you.